Hey, what's going on there, folks? It is the Earthmaster back here on this end of the weekend, Sunday, April 30th, 2023. It's the last day of April. Goodness, got May tomorrow coming in. April, May, right? Awesome. Okay, it is about 9:37 p.m. here along the west coast in the state of California, and the latest activity shows a 2.9 here in the red flag around the Indonesia area. Also, some movement, looks like a 1.5 coming into the California area as well. So let's go ahead and check out what's going on here across the area. We do have a pretty good swarm of moderate quakes over here around the northwestern edge here of the Philippine plate, the Okinawa area. But first we're going to go into the Southern California region, if I can find it. There we go. And take a look at the earthquake activity that's been ramping up, making a few folks nervous out here in the southern part of the state of California. This was temporarily paused earlier. It seems like had a lull in activity, but it looks as though things may be picking up here at the southern swarm, just north of Mexicali. This area was one of the original swarms that started off here a couple days ago. Then we've seen it migrate up north here along the San Jacinto fault zone, and then swap over here closer to the southern end of the San Andreas Fault near the Brawley seismic zone, the Salton Sea area. So looking at the earthquake activity so far in the last 24 hours, we got 76 earthquakes, the largest of the magnitude of 4.5. That's going to be up here into the Salton Sea area. And I want to bring up the all magnitudes here and see what we got for a total tally for these earthquakes, which is, it's been pretty good swarm of activity. 234 earthquakes, most of that occurring over the last 2 to 3 days in the area that you see here on the map. Kind of made like a triangle here, a little fashion, even a little migration here, trying to form that triangle up at the top. Kind of interesting there. But it looks like things are still kicking up here. In the last last hour, I should say, we've had 3 1.5s, all identical there, but of course in different locations and different depths there below the surface. Still getting a little inconsistency as to what's going on out here. Some of the news stations are picking up on it. I don't believe we've seen anything else from Dr. Lucy Jones here in regards to the activity, but I do want to check her Twitter account and see what's going on. Looks like the last update there was put out a couple days ago, kind of chatting a little bit about the swarming. But all right, let's see here. There is quite a bit. A lot of folks notice that too. A lot of pumping operations out here. Looks like some type of maybe natural gas, oil, not for sure exactly, but there's a whole bunch of these operations out here, and also a huge solar farm. And the majority of this earthquake activity has been occurring within the vicinity of this plant, whatever this area is. I'm not for sure exactly what this is. Some type of power station, I'm guessing. Looks like it anyway. And that's kind of where it's all centered. Still a little uncertainty onto what fault system this is on. One of the California maps here showed it was on the Dixieland fault, and I can't find too much activity on that fault system. But we do know this other activity up here is along the San Jacinto fault zone, and also off the Brawley seismic zone. And it's we got a good 20-mile difference here on a couple different fault systems. That's why it's it was a little concerning here. It's still a little concerning because of this migration pattern that we're seeing across this area, much closer to the southern end of the San Andreas Fault. It's it's one of those things where it may or may not trigger a bigger earthquake down here. I think the longer the swarm goes on, the more potential that we could see that perhaps activating this area, the plate boundary. There's nothing going on it right now. As far as earthquake activity goes, relatively quiet, but you can't help but wonder, right? With that pressure and migration shifting up here to the north. A glance at the model here. This is just a generic plate movement map. Kind of gives you the direction of the plates in relation here to the North American and the Pacific plate over here to the west. But in general, this is the direction of the North American plate. You can see how that kind of it does like a counterclockwise fashion here. But getting a lot of pressure building up here in this region, adding further strain specifically into that area of the Southern California area. Not seeing a whole lot of movement further up north away from this area, but it's still active, still very active here in this region. So, best thing to do is be prepared. I've been telling quite a few folks here, nothing, no need to be in fear, right? Got to live your life as expected, but also you need to make sure you have an emergency plan, earthquake plan, if something were to happen, say tonight or tomorrow, right now, who knows? It's always good to have an earthquake plan in place here. Not stress on it too much. Just, if you feel some strong shaking down there, stronger than normal, then obviously there's something bigger going on down here in this area. But for now, pretty good swarm of activity. We'll continue to watch that, monitor that activity in SoCal. I lost quite a few of the seismograph stations here, so I only have the Dinsmore station up in Northern Cal around Eureka and also Yellowstone. So I'm hoping those will come back tomorrow. Occasionally on the weekends, they do go offline. So we'll wait for those to come back tomorrow. All right, further up north into Northern California, there's not a whole lot happening here. In fact, if you look at the rest of the North American plate, things are a little spotty across this area. One earthquake in the New Madrid seismic zone. Earlier this afternoon, it looks like a 1.6. All right, the bigger topic here almost seems like a war between the west and the east here of the plates. Which one's going to go first? Is it going to be Japan or it's going to be the West Coast? And I've seen this happen before prior to that big mega quake out in the Japan area in 2011. We had a little event similar to that. And they were saying that 9-pointer back there off the coast of Japan relieved stress out here along the West Coast. And that makes sense, right? It makes a little sense with the general plate movement. It shifted a whole bunch of land over here. So we're seeing a pretty good swarm of earthquake activity here around the Okinawa area. This is a plate boundary. Let's go over here to the map. Not that close, but we're going to go over here. All right, so this is the northwestern corner of the Philippine plate. Roughly where this hand is where the Okinawa area is. And it's on the Filipino plate and the Eurasia plate. There is a subduction zone that runs through here. And it does produce some rather large earthquakes. Quite a few seamounts in here as well. I did pull up the historical data just to give a little quick overview of what's been going on out here, 6.5 and above since I pulled up the year 1000, just to make sure I cover all the records. The last earthquake within this region, it looks like a 6.6, but specifically where we're seeing the swarm right now, and by the way, just real quick, the swarm of about 5 earthquakes, the largest so far, a 5.9. Now, there could be more included. This is just what the USGS is reporting. EMSC is probably reporting about the same thing here, as you can see it, all these white rings here on the map. So 5 earthquakes, the largest of 5.9. Looking at the historical model here, shows a 7.0 back in 2010. I'm not for sure what the slip rate is on this area. I don't think I have it set up here yet. Around the Izu Trench and the Mariana Islands area, it's between 60 and 100 mm per year. I do need to look up the interval or the slip rate here on this side of the plate, but I assume it's pretty large too, because this area is getting squeezed and pushed around all around. You got the big Pacific plate, the big bully out here, the Eurasia plate putting strain on this area as well. The Australia plate kind of crunching. Everything's just crunching in this area around the Philippines, and this specifically, this Filipino plate. It's got a lot of earthquake activity out there. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is enough strain out there for potentially a 6.5 or larger in this area of the Okinawa region. This is where the swarming is occurring. So it looks like 2010, the last earthquake within that area. Also 7.0, a little bit closer. Back in 1911. 1962, 1968. So a lot of older movement quakes, folks. 2010, it looks like a 6.5 there as well. Had a couple earthquakes there in that year. Yeah, so far as anything major goes, the largest magnitude within this cluster looks like a 7.9, 1911, 7.7, 1938. That 7.9 was a little bit further up north, but this whole area, again, is a major trench area, and quite a bit of strain builds up here in a short amount of time with those, the back-to-back plates here just kind of crunching this whole area. So kind of watch that. It's a swarm of fives and getting into some upper fives out here. So that could be a telltale sign here of some larger movement about ready to take place in this area. A little bit further up north into the Tokyo area. Let's see what we got. Get rid of the swarm down south. Mostly fours. Did have a pretty deep 4.3 here into the Izu Trench. Notice that well inland inside, but underneath the Filipino plate here. I think that deeper movement here transferring some pressure over here to the west. A lot of times we'll see activity and strain build up here following deeper movement, but it looks like this whole area just wants to subduct, possibly creating some larger movement. Definitely keep an eye on that area. Also some activity here around the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench of 4.7. We've been watching this area for some potential mega quake activity. That's another major subduction zone here. Big one. Pretty lengthy as well. But for now, 4.7. Earlier this morning, it looks like 37 kilometers deep. A little swarm of activity up here off the coast, or into the Russia area. Looks like maybe around this this volcano. Looks like about 10 kilometers deep here. Not for sure which volcano it is, but it's pretty obvious. You can see quite a few volcanoes out there on this area. Major region for volcanoes. So definitely active, right? Fairly active, a little bit more uptick in movement across the northwestern corner of the Pacific Plate. Down here across the area of the Kermadec Trench, we've got 3.6 coming into the South America area right now. We'll check that out here in just a second. 5.1 it looks like on the Kermadec Trench area. Earlier this afternoon, Kermadec Islands, New Zealand, 32 kilometers deep. This activity following some relatively deep movement, a little bit further north, but still down into the trench. Had that 4.6, 601 kilometers deep. So getting a little bit of adjustment up here. That's more typical in subduction zones. Let me see what we have for the GeoNet servers out here across New Zealand. Give me a second here. 9 hours ago, 3.2. So here's the current map here over the last couple hours. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot of events kicked up here. 4.9, that's along the Kermadec Trench. Let me check out the earthquake drums here, and we'll move on. I don't think New Zealand's all that active currently right now. Looks a lot quieter than what it did. Still seeing a little bit of activity here along the eastern coast of the North Island, New Zealand region. Just some smaller quake activity. Nothing major, but again, that deeper movement taking place along the Kermadec Trench earlier, or up here earlier last night, late last night. Still adding some strain up here as noted with that 5.1. So keep an eye on this area. Further to the east, see if anything's going on out here on the Big Island. Right? Kind of been watching a pretty good swarm of activity here across Kilauea Volcano. Doesn't look like anything's changed. Quick glance here at the hazard notification system from the USGS with the HVO Kilauea Daily Update put out today. Currently not erupting and no lava. Inflationary tilt in the summit region slowed yesterday afternoon. Right, we're getting that slower inflationary tilt, indicating, right, obviously less earthquake activity up here across Kilauea Volcano. No significant changes have been observed along either of the volcano's rift zones over the past day. Let's see here. Doesn't really say anything else here across the area of the volcano, but we'll watch that, right? These swarms come and go. Obviously, when there's earthquake swarms, something's going on below the surface. We get that inflationary measurement around that volcano. Mauna Loa, pretty quiet right now. Up into the Alaska area. Swarm of movement here across these little volcanoes. Mount Martin, Trident volcano up here. This has been kind of an ongoing deal of smaller earthquakes over the past few months. Nothing major changing. Some movement across the Cook Inlet area, it looks like. Nothing big across this major subduction zone here for now. Let's see, the Pacific Northwest. Looks like Mount Rainier showing slight activity. Check out the tremor map and see what's going on here for the Cascadia tremor. 99 epicenters. It looks like a little here, a little there. So Northern California and a little bit up outside of the Olympia area of Washington. These are tremors occurring down dip into the Cascadia subduction zone. Looks like it's tapering off, though. It did kind of peak out here. Looks like mid-month, but since then, things are going back down. I was definitely expecting a much larger event. So with a smaller Cascadia slow slip event that we just had, it's very possible we could see a little break before another one pops up. But either way, we'll keep an eye on it. Cascadia has been of some topic and of some interest here recently. All right, let's see what else we have here across the area. South America, we did have that earthquake coming in on the Earthquake 3D Globe, 3.6 it looks like, being reported by the EMSC, along with some other smaller, we had a couple fours down there, some deeper movement quakes taking place there into the Peru-Chile Trench. Did want to point out this deep earthquake here in the Mediterranean region. Let's go ahead and scoot over here. And we've seen a 5.2 in the Italy area, just offshore it looks like. Trying to think exactly which subduction zone that's set on here. It's a twisted mess of plate tectonics throughout this area. As you can see on the map, this whole area gets pulled and torn and twisted. You can pretty much visualize it there. The 5.2 occurring 250 kilometers deep. That's a pretty deep earthquake off the coast of Italy. It does sit in a zone, right, subduction zone, so I'm guessing it starts right around here, where there's been quite a bit of historical data in the, let's see what we got for magnitudes, some larger magnitudes out there as well. Looks like further west you go here into the sea areas where you get to the deeper movement quakes there in the darker colored circles. Gray, moderate depth, and of course the shallower earthquakes occurring upstream around this area. So with this movement, definitely watch further areas around the sea and the Mediterranean here for some potential surface earthquake activity. It looks like we may have already had a little bit of movement here with that 2.1 just to the southwest on that plate boundary here, but continue to watch that here closely. Turkey area, some aftershock movement this morning. It looks like a 4.1. That area still seeing some activity in the 2 and 3 range. Fairly active, but definitely noteworthy to watch that area around Italy. Looks like a 2.0 coming into the Turkey area as we speak. They're into the green flag. Java Trench, relatively quiet. Just some 2s and 3s across this area. Most of the momentum and the pressure right now appears to be out here against the western portion of the Pacific Plate and adjacent Filipino Plate and the west coast. California is still very active and definitely keeping the earthquake watch up for now. Little earthquake here into the Cobb Mountain area. If you don't know what that is, just a real quick overview. This is a whole bunch of hydrothermal plants out here. There is obviously some activity going on below the ground, but a few folks there figured out a way to create some green energy by injecting raw sewage below into the heated surface to create some type of dry steam, I guess, that make it into energy. And that process actually powers quite a few homes out here north of the bay. Little gross, little weird to think about, but hey, humans have a way of being pretty creative, and there's quite a bit of earthquake activity out here right now with that 2.0 occurring within the vicinity of one of those plants, literally within walking distance here. Quite a bit of activity. All right, let's see what else we have as we backing out. Anything else going on down here in SoCal? 21:45. So it's been about over 10 minutes since we've had an earthquake there. And again, it's unfortunate I can't access the Barrett station. I'll try to get it here a little bit later. I've been looking at a couple other stations down there into the Southern California area, but a lot of these are offline. They're not accessible, even when they should be for the public domain. But hopefully these will reset in the morning. Definitely keep an eye on it. In the meantime, folks, just stay safe and be prepared out there on the West Coast. Leaving up the earthquake watch is noted. Space weather activity, we're popping with some M flares here a little bit. We did have 2 M flares over the last 12 hours or so. The largest, an M, looks like an M2.3. Latest one looks like an M 1.1 or so. Noticing a little bit of activity currently coming into the solar flare department, along with a little bit of radio blackout here on the sunlit side of the Earth. That's going to be the D layer map here. That affects pretty much navigation systems, also high frequency radio communications and low frequency navigation systems. Nothing big, but still a little bit of elevated activity with the solar flare threat going on. And I believe that's coming, looks like it's coming from a newer sunspot up here. Look at this on the northeastern limb. Notice that bright feature indicating some C-flare activity. So this looks like it's going to be an active region. Let's go ahead and look at it with the magnetic structure map here. Magnetogram image. It's still not, well, hold on, let me bring up the most recent imagery. There we go. A little bit better visual of it. This is the area that's kind of producing that C-flare activity right now. It does look fairly complex with different colors and whatnot. Kind of have to look hard, but it is a little bit more active region there on the northeastern side of the sun. This regional sunspot down here is looks like it's slightly degrading here. I think I had my hopes up a little bit high for seeing some major activity, but still might see an M flare from this area. Looks like a little bit of intermixing there in the colors of that magnetic structure. Not so much up here. Kind of hard to say though. Looks like 99% chance for a C flare. M flare at 40. X flare remains slightly elevated at 5% chance. We don't have any major coronal holes facing us. And looks like the aurora forecast is not very green. And doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. With a whole lot of green on the map, when there's a lot of green, that means no auroras. We need this in the yellow, red, or I think he even throws up the purple here with a very strong storm that we've seen here a couple weeks back. All right, let's see here. Anything else going on? Quick glance at the weather map here. This is a 6-hour average precipitation rate map. Going to just kind of throw this into motion here a little bit and see if we got any major storms to talk about here along the West Coast. We're going pretty much from mid-90s down into the 60s tomorrow with this low pressure system that's going to be spinning off here in Northern California, giving us rain chances and snow in the higher elevations. It's a late winter storm out here. We normally don't get a bunch of rain out here in the month of May. These are our dry months. But it looks as though, well, it looks like we may have a couple shots here over the next week or so. As far as any major rain events go on in the southern plains, looks like possibly maybe into Wednesday and start of Thursday. We're getting some, almost looks like monsoonal moisture, but definitely a lot of rain here for the Texas area. Seems like each day, I don't think we're going to see any major severe weather threat. Just general thunderstorms and probably some heavy rain out there across portions of Texas, which is good. They need that rainfall in that area quite a bit. Looks like Oklahoma getting some as well into the panhandles. At Kansas as well. So that's looks like going into Tuesday of next week. That's Tuesday night, looks like. So yeah, things are, wow, goodness, that's going to be on Wednesday. Either way, it looks like it's going to be a very active weather pattern for just probably rain, general thunderstorms out there. I don't see any major severe weather set up. Storm Prediction Center not really showing anything here over the next couple days. Doesn't look like there's too much on the extended long-range models, which is good news. So I think folks are welcoming the rain and whatnot out here. They definitely need it. All right, what else is there, folks? I think that's about it. Seismograph stations out here. All right, I'm going to back out of here, folks. Again, if anything major changes out here on the globe, earthquake activity, what do we got? 3.6 coming in New Zealand. Already getting some of that shallow earthquake activity ramping up down here, as we just mentioned. All right, yeah, if anything major happens, of course, we'll jump on here. I am keeping the magnitude slightly lowered, meaning that some of the smaller quakes are showing up here on the globe in Southern Cal, just due to that elevated earthquake activity. I think it's noteworthy to keep on there, keep tabs on the swarm. But again, if anything major happens, we'll jump back on here, do an update. Make sure you guys subscribe, click the bell. That way you can get notified when we do go live with any major updates. And, of course, the stream is running nonstop, 24/7. We'll keep that live Earthquake 3D stream running nonstop. Have a good night, folks. We'll catch you guys back here a little bit later. Looks like we added quite a few members here to the channel over the last couple days, so welcome to the new members. I think a few of those were gifted, so I appreciate the folks there handing out some gift memberships. That's always awesome. And, of course, we're doing our monthly drawing here for our members in about 2 weeks. On the 15th of May, we'll be giving out prizes there to the members that are on the channel. All right, folks, have a good night. Catch you guys a little bit later on.